This is DesignSafe Radio, where natural hazards researchers strive to make our society more resilient to everything nature throws at us.
As you mentioned, this whole thing hinges on having real people, take the actions needed and make the decisions that lead to the ultimate policy changes getting implemented. And you're doing that working with the SimCenter, developing some decision-making software. Can you tell us about that framework and who might use it and how that whole thing would work?
Yeah, so I mean, this is why SimCenter and DesignSafe are really important partners for us, because it is the whole center is very much focused on a tool that we're calling the Stakeholder-based Tool for the Analysis of Regional Risk, or STARR, STARR.
I was hoping that we'd have a really good acronym there.
Isn't that, yeah. So it's a quantitative tool. It's like a software, and it basically extends the loss models, regional loss models like Hazus or the R2D tool within SimCenter, and to include a really big focus on decision making and how different stakeholders make different decisions. So we have all the pieces of the normal regional loss model, like in the some of the modeling companies and stuff. So there's a module describing the hazard, the built environment inventory, the vulnerability, the economics. But we add on to that and link with that models that describe, one that describes how households are likely to make decisions, one that describes how insurers make decisions, and one that describes how different government agencies would make decisions, and they all interact with each other.
Wow.
So the idea is, with this kind of stakeholder-based tool, we can do two things. One is we can understand the decisions that stakeholders are likely to make under different policies. So if they would actually be implemented, and two, the outcomes that each would experience. So, because the reality is the outcomes aren't for the community as a whole. Each individual organization and individual either pays or gets money or loses money, and so the idea is that with that approach we can be more likely to find policy solutions that would actually be implemented, because they're consistent with the way these stakeholders actually make decisions, and households make decisions in a different way than insurers do,
and different households make decisions in different ways from each other.
And from each other, for sure. And then also we can try to find solutions that are win-win solutions where, everybody is a little better off, so that it's not like, there's going to be someone who really loses, who's likely to be in opposition to a policy. So it's, I think people are familiar, probably, or your audience at least would be familiar with Hazus and INCORE and like the SimCenter tool, so those kind of things, or the loss modeling companies. So it's like that, but there's this very important difference.
Yeah. Are you also incorporating like negotiation and models in there as well? Because it sounds like there's an aspect of persuasion as well as the data-driven decision making.
Well, it's not relying on like, can we persuade households to do something? Instead, we're trying to understand, what are households likely to do? If you make a buyout offer with a certain amount of money at a certain point in time, it's basically based on statistical and machine learning type models that we've fitted based on survey data. We try to estimate who's likely to accept that offer and who's not. So for example, some people will never accept a buyout offer, even if like your economic calculation says they should, they just won't. They don't want to move. And then some people will. And maybe people are more likely if you offer more money. But sort of understanding how people actually make these decisions. And it's the same, so there is interaction among the stakeholder models. For example, the insurers get to decide how much they're going to charge for insurance and what, who they're going to offer to. And but they can't force anyone to buy it. The households can decide if they want to buy insurance, but they don't get to decide what the price is.
No, they don't.
They can just take what's offered or not. So, so it's a game theoretic approach where like there's an equilibrium where, and then we can see at that price who's going to buy and who's not.
Yeah.
So hopefully we can find a solution where there's a functioning insurance market and they can make a profit and survive, and then also provide this important service to the households.
Yeah.
Help them manage their risk.
You got me really intrigued here. Do you have also ways of incorporating like non-monetary things in the compensation packages that you're, let's say in a buyout specific scenario?
Yeah, that's a great question. So, and I guess I'd have two parts to the answer. So one is the way we have the modeling right now for the households, it's based on survey data. So it's implicitly accounting for whatever they're considering in this calculation. So it might be, the cost of insurance or the deductible, whatever might be part of their decision, but there might be other things that are part of their decision as well. That's all sort of implicitly included. So that's part of the answer. The other part of the answer is right now, the STARR framework, the way it currently exists, and there is a version that's functioning now that's kind of based on previous research. The way it currently exists, the losses are all in terms of dollar losses, like repair and replacement costs,
right?
Premiums, deductibles, those things. But a big goal of the CHEER project over the next few years is to incorporate more of what you're talking about, because I think there are still things we're missing that are really important. So households care, for example, how long they might have to be out of their home.
Right.
So maybe our goal in the policy shouldn't be, it should be, reduce the expected losses, but also try to keep people in their homes as much as possible. Those are two different objectives, and they might be able to accomplish both, or there might be a trade-off in certain cases. So we really should be capturing that more.
Yeah,
that's a great point. Another thing that's part of the goal of having our community organizations as partners. These are like local on the ground grassroots organizations. So they have a very good feel for what the residents care about. And so another example of something that's come up is mold.
Oh yeah.
And we haven't addressed that in the past, but we're hearing it more and more. This is something that people are concerned about, that it happens a lot after hurricanes and floods. And so maybe we should be incorporating it if that's part of what their decisions are based on.
Right. Yeah. Moldy.
All of this makes it all more complicated.
Moldy, spider-infested houses where someone duct taped the fridge closed on their way out, and they've still got stuff in there 2 months later is unfortunately all too common.
Yeah, and it's, I don't know, the household decision making is very complicated because some people will live in a house that other people might say that's not habitable anymore. But depending on what their options are or what their situation is, they might be in a damaged house for a long time before it's repaired. So understanding those things and trying to consider them is important. But any kind of modeling exercise, you can always add more and more detail. And so it's always a trade-off of like, what do we need to include to really make it meaningful and have the results make sense and be something you would want to take into actually use. And when is it like it's getting so complicated that we no longer have confidence that it's correct. Like you can't model the world.
No, not in our lifetimes anyway.
Yeah.
Thanks for listening to today's episode of DesignSafe Radio. Be sure to like and subscribe on whatever platform you happen to be listening to this on. It really helps people find our show. Thanks to our amazing sponsors, the National Science Foundation and the NHERI Network Coordination Office, which is award number 2129782. Big thank you to Marty LaChance, our guest booker and topic researcher extraordinaire, and Raquel Ruiz, who is our video and audio editor. I'm your host and NHERI Facility Scheduling and Operations Coordinator, Dan Zahner. We'll see you in the next episode. Until then, stay resilient.